Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and I thought I knew what family meant until the day my own parents decided to destroy me for money. What I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a nightmare, but every word is true. This is the story of how the people who raised me tried to steal everything I'd worked for, and how I fought back in a way that changed all our lives forever. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I was in my home office, reviewing rental applications for my latest property acquisition, when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "We need to talk. Come to the house immediately." Something about the tone felt different, colder than her usual messages. But nothing could have prepared me for what I walked into. I pulled up to my childhood home, the same modest two-story house where I'd grown up dreaming of better things. Dad's truck was in the driveway next to Mom's sedan, and I noticed my sister Emma's BMW wasn't there. That should have been my first warning sign. Inside, my parents sat at the kitchen table with papers spread between them like a battle plan. Mom's face was stone-cold serious, and Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. The atmosphere felt thick with tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. "Sit down, Sarah," Mom said, her voice carrying an authority I hadn't heard since I was a teenager caught sneaking out. "What's going on?" I asked, settling into the chair across from them. "Where's Emma?" I thought this was a family meeting. Dad finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. Guilt. Shame. But also determination. "Emma's getting divorced," Mom said bluntly. "The legal fees are astronomical, and she needs money for a fresh start. We've talked, and we think it's time for you to help your sister." I felt a familiar knot forming in my chest. This wasn't new, Emma needing help, my parents expecting me to provide it. But something felt different this time. "Of course I'll help," I said carefully. "How much does she need?" "I can write a check." "No," Mom interrupted, sliding a stack of papers across the table toward me. "We need you to sell your properties." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at the papers, legal documents I couldn't quite process through my shock. "My properties? Mom, those are my livelihood. That's my retirement, my security." "Your sister needs security too," Dad said quietly. "She's struggling, Sarah. Really struggling. And you have so much." I picked up the papers with trembling hands. Asset liquidation agreements. Property transfer documents. They'd had lawyers draw up papers to force me to sell everything I'd worked for. "I don't understand," I whispered. "You want me to sell all 5 of my rental properties to fund Emma's divorce?" "It's not just the divorce," Mom said, her voice taking on that manipulative tone I remembered from childhood. "She needs money to start over. To get her own place, establish herself. You know how hard it's been for her. Hard for her." I almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter sound. Emma, who'd had everything handed to her since birth. Emma, who'd married rich at 23 while I was working 3 jobs to save for my first property down payment. Emma, who'd never worked a day in her life because her husband provided everything. "I worked for those properties," I said, my voice stronger now. "I sacrificed for years, saved every penny, learned the business from the ground up. Those properties are my future." "And Emma is your family," Mom snapped. "Family comes first, Sarah. Always." That's when I saw the second stack of papers. Court documents. My name listed as a defendant. "You're suing me?" The words came out as barely a whisper. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Only if you refuse to help voluntarily." "Sarah, honey, we don't want to go to court." "But Emma is desperate. She's our baby, and she needs us." Our baby. Even at 30, Emma was still their baby, while I'd been expected to be an adult since I was 12 years old. "The lawsuit claims you have a moral and financial obligation to help your sister," Mom continued, as if she were discussing the weather. "Given your resources and her need, any reasonable court would side with family unity." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. You can't force someone to sell their property to fund someone else's lifestyle. "We raised you," Dad said, his voice taking on a hurt tone. "We sacrificed for you, put you through school, supported your dreams. Now it's time to support your sisters." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I remembered all those years of working while Emma partied. All those times I'd helped with her problems while my own went unnoticed. All those family gatherings where my achievements were glossed over while Emma's latest purchase, her vacation, was celebrated. "I need time to think," I said, backing toward the door. "You have 24 hours, Mom called after me. Either you agree to help Emma voluntarily, or we move forward with the lawsuit." "And Sarah?" "Don't think we won't follow through. Family means everything to us, and we won't let Emma suffer when you have the means to help her." I made it to my car before the tears started. Sitting in the driveway of my childhood home, I felt like that 12-year-old girl again, the one who'd been told she was selfish for wanting her own birthday party instead of sharing with Emma. The one who'd been expected to give up her college fund to help pay for Emma's wedding. The one who'd always been the responsible one, the one who took care of everyone else. But I wasn't 12 anymore. I was 32, and I'd built something real with my own hands. Those properties weren't just investments, they were proof that I could create security for myself in a world where no one else would. As I drove home, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Emma, from my aunt, from family friends. Word was already spreading about the family situation. The narrative was being crafted, selfish Sarah refusing to help poor, struggling Emma. That night, I sat in my living room surrounded by property documents and legal papers, trying to make sense of what had happened. How had my own parents decided I was the villain in this story? How had my success become something shameful, something that made me obligated to fix everyone else's problems? I called my lawyer, Marcus, a sharp man in his 50s who'd helped me with all my property acquisitions. "Sarah," he said after I'd explained the situation, "I have to ask, is there something you're not telling me about your relationship with your family?" "What do you mean?" "This lawsuit, it's unusual. Parents don't typically sue their children to force asset liquidation for a third party. There's something else going on here." His words echoed in my mind as I hung up. Something else going on. But what could be worse than what I already knew? The next morning brought another shock that would turn my understanding of my family upside down. Emma finally called, and what she told me made everything click into place in the most horrible way possible. "Sarah," she said, her voice thick with tears, "I need to tell you something about the divorce. About why I really need the money. Mom and Dad, they don't know the whole truth. And that's when I learned that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. Emma's voice shook as she continued, "Can we meet somewhere private? I can't tell you this over the phone." 2 hours later, we sat in a quiet corner booth at a diner across town, somewhere we'd never been as kids. Emma looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, expensive clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. "I've been lying to everyone," she began, stirring her untouched coffee with trembling hands. "The divorce isn't what everyone thinks. Mark isn't just leaving me. He's pressing charges." My blood went cold. "Charges for what?" "I stole from his business," she whispered, the words barely audible. "A lot of money. Over 2 years. I thought I could pay it back before he noticed, but..." The confession hit me like a freight train. Perfect Emma, who'd never had to work for anything, had been embezzling from her own husband's company. "How much?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. $800,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. 800. "Emma, what did you do with that much money?" She looked up at me with desperate eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw my little sister instead of the entitled woman she'd become. "I have a gambling problem, Sarah. It started small, just some online poker to pass time when Mark was working. But then it became... I couldn't stop. I kept thinking the next bet would fix everything, would help me pay back what I'd taken. The pieces started falling into place. Emma's mood swings over the past few years. Her requests for small loans that she'd never paid back. The way she'd avoided family gatherings where Mark was present. "Mom and Dad don't know any of this," she continued. "I told them Mark was being vindictive, that he was trying to leave me with nothing. They think I'm the victim. And the lawsuit against me?" Emma's face crumpled. "That was Mom's idea. She said you were selfish for not helping family, that you'd forgotten where you came from. She convinced Dad that they needed to force your hand because you'd never help voluntarily." I sat back, processing this information. My parents had sued me based on lies. They'd chosen to believe Emma's sob story without question, just like they always had. "Emma, you have to tell them the truth." "I can't." She grabbed my hand across the table. "If they know what I really did, they'll never forgive me. You know how they are about reputation, about what the neighbors think. This will destroy them." And there it was, the same pattern that had defined our entire childhood. Protect Emma at all costs. Shield her from consequences. Make sure everyone else paid the price for her mistakes. "So you want me to lose everything I've worked for to cover up your crimes?" "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that." I pulled my hand away. "Emma, I love you, but I won't sell my properties to enable your gambling addiction. That money won't help you, it'll just disappear into your next bet." Her face hardened, and I saw a flash of the manipulative person she'd become. "Fine. Then I'll let Mom and Dad follow through with the lawsuit. And when that doesn't work, I'll tell them you refused to help your own sister when she was desperate. They'll never forgive you, Sarah. You'll lose your family." "I'm losing them anyway," I said quietly. The moment they decided to sue me, they made their choice. That afternoon, I called a family meeting of my own. I needed to hear from my parents directly, to understand how they could justify what they were doing to me. They agreed to meet at their house that evening. When I arrived, I found them in the same positions as the day before, sitting at the kitchen table like judges at a tribunal. "Have you made your decision?" Mom asked before I'd even sat down. "I have some questions first," I said. "Tell me about Emma's marriage. What exactly happened?" Dad launched into the familiar narrative. Mark was controlling, he'd isolated Emma from her friends, he was trying to take everything in the divorce out of spite. "And you believe all of this?" I asked. "Of course we believe it," Mom snapped. "She's our daughter. Why would she lie about something so serious?" I could have told them the truth right then. Could have exposed Emma's lies and gambling addiction. But something held me back, a need to understand just how deep their favoritism ran. "Let me ask you something else," I said. "Do you remember my college graduation?" They exchanged confused looks. "Of course we remember," Dad said. "Do you remember what you told me that day?" More confused looks. "You told me I was selfish for scheduling my graduation party on the same weekend as Emma's friend's wedding. You said family should come first, that I should have checked with Emma before making plans. I ended up celebrating alone because you all went to the wedding instead." "That's different," Mom started. "Is it? Or what about when I bought my first rental property? I was so excited to tell you, and you asked if I'd considered giving Emma the down payment money instead so she could redecorate her house." "Sarah, we don't see what this has to do with." "It has everything to do with everything." I stood up, all the years of suppressed frustration pouring out. My entire life, I've been expected to sacrifice for Emma. My needs, my dreams, my achievements, none of it mattered as long as Emma was happy. "You've always been the strong one," Dad said, as if that explained everything. "Emma needs more support. Emma is 30 years old. When does the support end? When does she become responsible for her own life?" "When you stop being selfish and help your sister," Mom said coldly. The word selfish hit me like a slap. It was the same word they'd used my entire childhood whenever I wanted something for myself. Selfish for wanting my own birthday party. Selfish for not sharing my college fund. Selfish for moving out after graduation instead of staying home to help with Emma. "I'm not selling my properties," I said clearly. "I worked for those properties. I earned them. They're my security for the future." "Then we'll see you in court," Mom said, her voice like ice. As I drove home that night, I realized something that both broke my heart and set me free. My parents had never seen me as their daughter. I'd been the family workhorse, the one expected to carry everyone else's burdens without complaint. Emma was their daughter, precious, fragile, deserving of protection. I was just the strong one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need love because I was capable of taking care of myself. But I wasn't going to be that person anymore. The next morning, I called Marcus and told him to prepare for a fight. If my parents wanted to take me to court, I'd show them exactly what the strong, responsible daughter they created was capable of. What I discovered during the legal preparation process would change everything I thought I knew about my family's financial situation, and reveal a betrayal so deep it would shake the foundation of everything I'd believed about my childhood. Marcus called me 3 days later with news that made my blood run cold. "Sarah, we need to meet immediately." I've been doing some research for your defense, and I've found something unusual. An hour later, I sat in his office as he spread financial documents across his desk like pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to see completed. Your parents' lawsuit claims they're struggling financially to help Emma, he began, but their financial records tell a very different story. He slid a bank statement toward me. This is your parents' main account. They have over $400,000 in savings. I stared at the number, unable to process it. That's impossible. Dad's been retired for 5 years, and Mom only worked part-time. They've always said money was tight. There's more. Marcus pulled out another document. This is a property deed. Your parents own a vacation cabin in the mountains that's worth approximately $300,000. My hands started shaking. What cabin? They've never mentioned a cabin. According to the records, they bought it 7 years ago. And Sarah. He paused, looking uncomfortable. There's something else. I found records of regular large deposits into their account over the past 8 years. Money coming from an LLC registered under your father's name. What kind of LLC? Property management. It looks like your father has been running a business none of you knew about. The room started spinning. My parents, who'd always pleaded poverty when I needed help with college expenses, who'd made me feel guilty for my success, had been secretly wealthy for years. I need to see everything, I said. What Marcus showed me next destroyed every assumption I'd ever had about my family. The LLC managed 12 rental properties across 3 counties. Properties my father had been acquiring quietly while telling me how proud he was of my little real estate hobby. But the worst revelation was yet to come. Sarah, Marcus said gently, I need to ask you about your college tuition. Did your parents help you pay for school? No, I said bitterly. I took out loans, worked 3 jobs. They said they couldn't afford to help because they'd already spent so much on Emma's wedding. Marcus pulled out another document. This is a tuition payment record from your university. Someone paid your full tuition for all 4 years. The payments came from your father's business account. I stared at the papers, my brain struggling to process the information. That's impossible. I paid my own tuition. I have the loan documents. Look at the dates, Marcus said softly. The tuition payments were made the same days my loan disbursements were processed. Which meant my parents had paid my tuition, but let me believe I was drowning in debt. They'd let me struggle, work multiple jobs, skip meals to save money, all while secretly covering my education costs. Why would they do this? I whispered. I think I know, Marcus said. And I think it's connected to Emma's situation. That evening, I drove to my parents' house with a copy of every document Marcus had found. I didn't call ahead. I didn't give them time to prepare their lies. I found them in the living room, watching TV like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't turned my world upside down with their lawsuit. We need to talk, I said, walking in without being invited. Sarah, we told you, Mom started. You lied to me. I dropped the stack of papers on their coffee table. About everything. Dad's face went pale when he saw the financial records. Mom's eyes darted between the papers and my face, calculating. I know about the cabin, I said. I know about Dad's rental properties. I know about the money you have in savings. And I know you paid my college tuition while letting me think I was drowning in debt. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Dad spoke. How did you find out? Does it matter? What matters is that you've been lying to me my entire adult life. Why, Dad? Why let me struggle when you could have helped? Why make me feel guilty for my success when you were building your own empire in secret? Mom found her voice then. Because we knew you could handle it, she said defensively. You were always so capable, so determined. We knew you'd figure it out. And Emma? The question hung in the air. Emma needed different kinds of support, Dad said quietly. Different kinds? You mean money. You mean you've been giving Emma money all these years while watching me work myself to the bone? It's not that simple, Mom began. It's exactly that simple. I exploded. You have $700,000 in assets, but you're suing me to force me to sell my properties for Emma. You let me believe I was on my own financially while secretly ensuring I could succeed, then made me feel guilty for that success. What kind of parents do that? Dad looked broken. We wanted you to be strong. Independent. We knew Emma would always need taking care of, but you were going to be fine no matter what. So you decided my feelings didn't matter? My security didn't matter? You decided I was just a resource to be managed for Emma's benefit? That's not. Yes, it is. I grabbed the papers. Emma told me about the gambling, Dad. About the embezzlement. About why she really needs the money. And you're willing to destroy my life to cover up her crimes. The color drained from both their faces. You knew, I said, reading their expressions. Oh my God, you knew about the gambling. Mom's composure finally cracked. She promised she'd stopped. She swore the money was just for the divorce. She lied. Just like she's lied about everything else. And you believed her because it was easier than admitting your precious Emma is a criminal. Don't talk about your sister that way, Dad said weakly. She's not my sister anymore, I said, the words surprising me with their finality. And after this, you're not my parents. I headed for the door, then turned back one last time. I'm withdrawing my lawsuit defense, I said. Take me to court if you want. But when you do, I'll countersue for fraud, emotional distress, and anything else my lawyer can think of. And all of this, your secret properties, your hidden money, Emma's embezzlement, it'll all come out in public record. Mom gasped. You wouldn't. Try me, I said. You taught me to be strong, remember? You taught me that family doesn't matter when money's involved. I learned those lessons very well. As I drove home, my phone rang. Emma. Sarah, please, she sobbed. Mom called me. She told me what happened. I know you're angry, but we can fix this. We're family. No, I said calmly. Family doesn't sue each other. Family doesn't lie for decades. Family doesn't sacrifice one child for another. But what am I going to do? Mark is pressing charges. I could go to prison. You should have thought about that before you stole $800,000. I hung up and blocked her number. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to just defend myself, I was going to make sure my parents and Emma faced the consequences of their choices. But first, I had one more revelation to uncover, one that would explain everything about why my parents had treated me the way they had. The truth I discovered would be the most devastating of all. The revelation came from an unexpected source, my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, who called me the day after my confrontation with my parents. "Sarah, honey, I heard about the lawsuit," she said, her voice heavy with something I couldn't identify. "I think there's something you need to know. Something your parents should have told you years ago." We met at a small cafe downtown, and Linda looked older than I remembered, worn down by the weight of whatever secret she'd been carrying. "What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt," she began, "but you deserve to know the truth about why your parents treated you and Emma so differently." I braced myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. "You're not their biological daughter, Sarah." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Your mother's sister, my other sister, Rebecca, she died in a car accident when you were 6 months old. She was a single mother, struggling with addiction, and your parents had been helping her. When she died, they adopted you officially, but they never told you." I stared at her, unable to process the information. "Rebecca." I remember them talking about an Aunt Rebecca who died, but... "She was your mother, honey. Your birth mother." Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. The way my parents had always treated me like I should be grateful. The constant reminders that I was lucky to have what I had. The way they'd never quite looked at me the same way they looked at Emma. "They raised me to feel like I owed them everything," I whispered. Linda nodded sadly. "I think they meant well at first, but as the years went on, they started to see Emma as their real daughter and you as, well, as an obligation. A good deed they'd done that they expected gratitude for." "Does Emma know?" "No. They decided when you were young that it would be easier if you never knew. They thought it would protect you from feeling different. But I had felt different. My entire life, I'd felt like an outsider in my own family, like I had to earn my place every single day." "There's something else," Linda continued. "The money they've been giving Emma all these years? Some of it was supposed to be yours. Rebecca had a small life insurance policy, $50,000. It was meant for your future, but your parents have been treating it like family money." The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. Not only had they hidden my true parentage, they'd stolen my birth mother's final gift to me and given it to Emma. I thanked Linda and drove home in a daze. Everything made sense now, the emotional distance, the constant comparisons, the way they'd always made me feel like I was asking for too much when I needed anything. That night, I made a decision that would have terrified the old Sarah, the one who'd spent her life trying to earn love from people who would never see her as family. I called Marcus and told him to move forward with the countersuit. But I also had him prepare something else, adoption reversal paperwork. If my parents wanted to treat me like a stranger, I'd give them exactly what they wanted. The lawsuit hearing was set for 3 weeks later. In that time, my parents tried everything: tears, guilt, anger, promises. Emma showed up at my house crying, begging me to reconsider. Extended family members called to tell me I was destroying the family. But for the first time in my life, I felt clear about who I was and what I deserved. The day of the hearing, I walked into that courtroom with Marcus by my side and a folder full of evidence that would change everything. My parents sat with their lawyer, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Emma wasn't there. She was meeting with prosecutors about a plea deal for the embezzlement charges. When the judge asked for my response to their lawsuit, I stood up and spoke clearly. Your Honor, I'm not only defending against this frivolous lawsuit, I'm filing a countersuit for fraud, emotional manipulation, and conversion of funds. Additionally, I'm formally reversing my adoption and requesting that all family ties be legally severed. The gasps from the gallery behind me were audible. My parents' lawyer looked shocked. I've learned that my adoptive parents have hidden significant assets while claiming poverty to manipulate me into giving up my financial security for their biological daughter's benefit. They've lied about their financial situation, stolen money that was left to me by my biological mother, and have spent 31 years making me feel like I owed them gratitude for basic care. I presented all the evidence, the hidden properties, the secret bank accounts, the proof that they'd paid my tuition while letting me believe I was drowning in debt. I told the court about Emma's embezzlement and gambling addiction, about the lies they'd all told to manipulate me. When I was finished, the judge looked at my parents with obvious disgust. Not only am I dismissing your lawsuit, he said, I'm awarding damages to Ms. Sarah for emotional distress and conversion of funds. You'll return the $50,000 that belonged to her biological mother, plus interest. And I'm approving her request for adoption reversal. Just like that, I was legally free from the people who'd raised me. As we walked out of the courthouse, my former father, tried one last time. Sarah, please. We know we made mistakes, but we love you. You're our daughter. I turned to look at him, this man who'd shaped so much of my pain and struggle. No, I said calmly. I was never your daughter. I was your charity case, your good deed, your backup plan for taking care of Emma. But I'm done being any of those things. I walked away and didn't look back. 6 months later, I'm writing this story from my new home office in a house I bought with the settlement money. It's the 6th property in my portfolio, and I'm building the real estate business I've always dreamed of. Emma ended up pleading guilty to embezzlement and received 2 years probation and community service. My former parents sold their secret cabin to pay her restitution, though they still have plenty of money left. They tried to contact me a few times through mutual friends, but I've made it clear that chapter of my life is closed. I'm in therapy now, working through 31 years of manipulation and gaslighting. I'm learning to trust my instincts, to believe I deserve good things, to understand that real love doesn't come with conditions and keeping score. The most surprising thing? I'm happier than I've ever been. I have real friends now, people who care about me for who I am, not what I can do for them. I'm dating someone who thinks my ambition and independence are attractive, not selfish. I'm building a life based on my own values, not someone else's expectations. I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt sometimes. Losing a family, even a dysfunctional one, leaves a hole. But I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who only see your worth in terms of how you serve them. The properties they wanted me to sell are thriving. I've expanded my business, hired a property management company, and I'm working on my real estate license. The scared, guilty woman who walked into that kitchen 6 months ago doesn't exist anymore. She's been replaced by someone who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less than she deserves. To anyone reading this who's struggling with family manipulation or feeling guilty for setting boundaries, you are not responsible for fixing other people's problems. You are not selfish for protecting what you've worked for. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, even if they raised you. Sometimes the family you create is better than the one you were born into. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this from family members who were supposed to love and support you? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference in finding the courage to choose ourselves.